City environments. I just absolutely love them. When I first got into the hobby many years ago, I always dreamed of playing games on a big, ruined city. When the City Fight rules first came out for Games Workshop, I actually built myself a 4-foot square city. It was made out of cardboard, polystyrene and all bits and pieces. It got used in a major campaign that we played, and my son was also there. Now with this big project, the ruined city takes shape once more. This is how I painted the city street tiles. The street tiles are produced by TT Combat, and they are 12-inch square pieces. Made of MDF, they are easily assembled. I used these two pieces as the example for this video. First, I sprayed them with Duramax Granite Effect. This is a product brought from Bunnings here in Australia, and what it does is it actually produces a textured effect onto the tiles. The tiles themselves are actually flat and quite smooth. Make sure when you're spraying that you don't get any on the edges. Also, spray in a well-ventilated area as well. With the spray ready to go, all shaken up, then do a couple of passes over the board. You can spray this as light or as heavy as you need. As you can see, I mainly concentrated on the entire tiles, but then went back and did some extra work on the corners. There's that textured effect, and that gives a nice ability for you to actually dry brush and get some texture into the painting. Once that was done, I grabbed Citadel Mechanica Standard Grey, and then gave both the tiles a good spray of the grey paint. These were my first attempts. In later attempts, I actually sprayed black spray paint onto the roads directly themselves. That's why in some pictures you'll see that the roads are slightly darker than what they'll turn out in this video. Give it a good spray, even a second coat, but try to leave some of the original MDF seeing through, as that'll give you some good colour difference. Make sure you spray from all angles so that you get into all the nooks and crannies. With the undercoating complete, it was time to come inside to the painting desk to apply some more detail. So I grab a shade brush and some GW Null Oil. Please note that this video was taken prior to them changing the formulation on the Null Oil, so if you use the same, you might get a different result. So I liberally applied the Null Oil over the roads. Because the tile is already been undercoated, the paint actually adhered quite well, and the texture, obviously from the textured spray paint, made it look slightly rough, like a road should be. With the first coat done, I then moved on, and this time I used Null Oil Gloss, which of course you can't get anymore. So a second coat of Null Oil will work just as well. It just gives a slightly darker shade again to the road, because you want the road to stand out from the curb. Next I went with some Agrac Earthshade. This I used to show some grime, particularly down the centre of the streets, or around towards the edges. Don't cover the entire road in the Agrac Earthshade, as you want it to be predominantly black and not brown. After making sure that I've got my shade paintbrush nice and clean, I then moved on to some other colours. The edges of every road is of course going to be full of dirt and rubbish, so I use some GW Contrast Cygor Brown. This I used to paint road grime across all the edges. It was also a good way of filling in any exposed MDF that might be there. If you get any of it on the pavement, on the grey side of it, just wipe it off. Now it's time to use some Mechanica Standard Grey. And for this I actually did a light dry brushing of Mechanica Standard Grey over all the grey curved areas. Using my dry brush and the cloth to get as much paint off, I concentrated mainly on the edges and the in-between areas of the detail. That would give it just a slightly darker grey tone. Now it was time to apply some different colours. This is GW Belfast Gold, which I used on some of the metallic parts. Mostly like plate covers or other metal parts that you can identify. The detail on these TT Combat streets is just really, really good. Even after all this paint that's being put on it through the sprays and the washes and the dry brushing, you can still see most of the detail through it. Now I'm going with some GW Lead Belcher. This I'm using for any other metal parts. So the metal parts on the board are actually one of two colours. I also did the sewer plates on the road in the GW Lead Belcher. And also in the little cat's eyes down the middle. Now I started applying some different shades of grey. Starting with GW Skaven Blight Dirge. This is a darker grey colour. It's also got some other tones in it as well that makes it slightly different. So I just picked out an area on the tile and filled it in with that paint. After that I grabbed another shade of grey, which is GW Dawnstone. Picking out a different area on the tile. I then filled that in with the Dawnstone. And you can alternate these areas as well to give a bit of variety. Next up, some GW Contrast Basilicacum Grey. This I used over all the metal parts on the tile. So that's the Belfast Gold and the Lead Belcher. With all the colours done and the wash applied, it's now time to give it a final dry brushing. This is GW Celestra Grey, and I made sure that I only dry brushed the actual curbside areas. I didn't dry brush the roads because I want them to be kept dark. One tile done and 15 to go. And here's the finished product. As you can see, all the different colours give it a nice random pattern.